Greetings. We're looking at a system of three linear equations. We have three unknowns. We're going to look at solving this system of equations, but we're going to do it by hand. Then we're going to use the reduced row echelon form. We're going to look at using a calculator to do that. We'll do it by hand and the calculator, and then we're going to look at using matrices. We'll solve this using a matrix equation. So the first thing we need to do to solve this is we got three unknowns. We need two equations with two unknowns, then we can solve it. And if you take a look at this, if we look at the first top two equations, if we add these two together, I'm going to take negative 2x minus x, and I get x. I have negative 5y plus y, gives me minus 4y. And then I got plus z minus z, which is 0. So that means the z variable goes away, which leaves me with one equation with two unknowns. So negative 8 plus 2 is negative 6. And then my bottom equation, notice it only has two variables in there. This has the x and the y. So I'm going to write that right below it. And now I can add these two equations together and get rid of the x's. No. I got to take if I take the top equation times negative 1. Okay, let's take the top equation times negative 1, which means I'm going to multiply both sides of the equation by negative 1, which means I multiply every term times negative 1. And what that does, it gives me negative 1x. I just got to change the signs of everything. Plus 4y equals 6. Now, if I take the bottom equation, which is x minus 3y equals negative 5, now if I add these two equations together, the x variable drops out. So it leaves me with 4y minus 3y is y, and 6 minus 5 is 1. So there's your solution for y. Now take that and let's plug it in. You can plug it into either of the two equations right above. So let's just take and plug it into the let's go to the top equation, the one in red. So I have negative x plus 4 times y, but y is 1. So replace the y with a 1 equals 6. So I'm just plugging in for that y right there. So I have negative x plus 4 equals 6. Subtract 4 from both sides, and you get negative x equals 2. Multiply both sides by negative 1. Get x equals negative 2. So there's your x value. To find your z value, you can take either top two equations. I'll take the top equation. Okay, this is the original top equation. I'm going to let y equal 1. I'm going to let x equal negative 2. So I have 2 times x, which is negative 2, minus 5 times y, which is 1, plus z equals negative 8. So 2 times negative 2 is negative 4, minus 5 plus z equals negative 8. And negative 4 minus 5 is negative 9, plus z equals negative 8. And then just add 9 to both sides. And you have z equals 1. So there's your ordered triplet. Negative 2 is your x, 1 is your y, and 1 is your z. So those three original equations, this is the only solution that works for all three. Okay, that's the only solution. It's an ordered triplet that works for all three. So we solved it by hand. Now a second way to solve this is by using put in row echelon form using matrices. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take this original system equation, I'm going to take the letters out. Just look at the coefficients. So I have 2, negative 5, 1, negative 8. Those are just the coefficients. Negative 1, y, negative 1, 2. That's the second equation. Then the third equation is 1, negative 3. Okay, 1x minus 3y. Then it's got no z, so it's 0z equals negative 5. This is called an augmented matrix. So I'm going to do the same thing I did on the previous slide, except I'm going to leave the variable out, which should make it a little bit easier to do. So what you want to do is you want to put it in a row echelon form. Row echelon form will look like this. The main diagonal is ones. You have zeros below. And reduced row echelon form, you have zeros above. And then the number over here, those three numbers right there, this will be your x value, that'll be your y value, that'll be your z value. And we just did it, and we got x was -2, y was 1, z was 1. So that's what we should end up with, right? So we're going to make it look like we have on the left there. So how am I going to do that? I want a 1. Here's the process to do it. You want to get a 1 here, and then you want zeros below. You want to get a 1 here, zeros below. You want to get a 1 there. And then you work backwards. You want to get a 0 here, then you want to get zeros here and zeros there. And then it's in reduced row echelon form. And the numbers that are left over here are your answers, your ordered triplet. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to have a 1 in that upper left-hand position. So I'm going to take these two rows and just interchange them. I'm going to take the top row and put it on top. I'm sorry, take the bottom row and put it on top. So it's 1, -3, 0, -5. And then I'll take the top row and put it on the bottom. So it's 2, -5, 1, -8. And just leave the middle row where it's at. There, I already did the first thing. I got a 1 here on the top left, right? Next step is to get zeros below that 1. So how am I going to do that? I'm just going to add. I'm going to take row 1 plus row 2. If I take row 1 plus row 2, I got a 1 here and a -1 there. If I add those together, I get 0. Now I wish that, well, let's do that first. Okay, top row is going to stay the same. 1, -3, 0, -5. If I add the top row 1 and row 2 together, I get 1 plus -1 is 0. I got -3 plus 1 is -2. I got 0 plus 1 is -1. I got -5 plus 2, which is -3. Now, to get a 0 here, right there, I got, over here I have 1 plus 2. That's not going to work. So I'm going to take the top equation times -2. You want those two to be opposites of each other. So I have a 2 on the bottom, so I want the top to be a -2. So the way I do that is I'm just going to take a -2 times row 1 and add it to row 3. If I take 2 times that 1 right there, I get 2. Add it to -2. Add it to 2, I get 0. So I'm going to take 2 times that -3, which is -6, and add it to -5. So 2 times negative. Okay, so I'm going to take -2 times -3, which is 6, added to -5, which is 1. I'm going to take -2 times 0, added to 1 is 1, and then -2 times -5 is 10, added to 8, -8 is 2. So there I got the 1 on top and 0's below. Next step, I want to get a 1 right there. So I'm just going to interchange row 2 and row 3. So I'm going to take 1, -3, 0, -5. That's the top row. I'm going to take the bottom row, put it in the middle, and take the middle row and put it on the bottom. So now I want to get a 0 here. So I'm going to take the top row and leave it alone. Middle row I'm going to leave it alone. But the last row I'm going to take 2 times row 2 and add it to row 3. So 2 times 0 is 0, added to 0 is 0. 2 times that 1 is 2, added to negative 2 is 0. 2 times 1 right there is 2, added to 1. Added to negative 1 is 1. And 2 times that 2 is 4, added to 3 is 1. This right here is called row echelon form. The main diagonal right here is 1s, and I have 0s below. Okay, reduced row echelon form, you should do what I've been doing, but you get 0s on top of those 1s, the main diagonal. See, right here we can actually stop, because this 1 right here, this is your z coefficients. The middle column is your y coefficients, and the first column is your x coefficients. And so if I look at this last row right here, I have 1z equals 1. So z equals 1. That's what we had before, right? And then if I take this second row, I have 0, 1, 1, 2. So this is 1y plus 1z equals 2. I know that z equals 1, so if I put a 1 in there, I get y plus 1 equals 2. So y equals 1. That's what we had before. And then I could take the top row, which is 1, negative 3, 0, negative 5. So this is 1x minus 3y plus 0z equals negative 5. And put your values in. We know y is 1, so you got 3 times 1 plus 0z, so that doesn't, you don't need that, equals negative 5. So I have x minus 3 equals negative 5. Add 3 to both sides, you get x equals 2. And that's our ordered triplet. Okay, that's what we had before. We had x was negative 2, y was 1, z was 1.